This video is about factoring the greatest common factor out of a polynomial. And the definition of a greatest common factor is the largest factor that all terms have in common. So the directions state, factor each expression completely. So the easiest way to do this is to make a little tree diagram with all your factors. So for instance, if we look at 12, 12 multiplies, let's say, to 4 times 3. And then 4 multiplies to 2 times 2. Now let's do the same thing with 16. So with 16 we have 4 times 4, and then the 4's multiply to 2 times 2 and 2 times 2. So now if I look at just the numbers at the bottom of the tree, I have 2 times 2 times 3, and if we include that x, times x, minus, now our second factor, we have at the bottom 2, 2, 2, and 2. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, and then we also have that y, so times y. So now for the greatest common factor, we have to look at which numbers are in common in both of our terms. So we have this 2 right here and this 2. So we have one pair of 2's that's in common, and we also have a second pair of 2's. So we have 2 pairs of 2's that are in common, so I'm actually going to cross those out because we already pulled that greatest common factor out in front. Then what do we have left? Well, in our first term we have a 3x that's left. We're going to bring down the minus sign, and then we have 2 times 2 times y that's left in our second term. So let's simplify this up a little bit. 2 times 2 is 4. Then we're left with 3x minus 2 times 2 is 4y. So that is how you factor this expression completely. So 4 was our greatest common factor. Let's try number 2. So for number 2, if we do our tree, we have what two numbers multiply to 4? Well, that would be 2 and 2. And then what two numbers multiply to 6? Well, we have 2 and 3. So if we write out our expression, we have 2 times 2, and then x squared means x times x. Then we have our minus sign. And then for our second term, we have 2 times 3 times x times y. So if we look at this, we want to see what is our greatest common factor. What's in common between those two terms? Well, we have 2's that are in common, so I'm going to write 1, 2 out front. And we also have an x in common, so I'm going to bring that out front of our expression. So what we have left is we have a 2 times x, bring down the minus sign, and then 3 times y. So there is our expression factored out completely. Now for number 3, we actually have 3 terms here. So if we factor this out, we have 2 times 3. For 15, we have 3 times 5. And for 9, we have 3 times 3. So if we write out our expression with all of our factored out terms, we have 2 times 3 times x plus we have 3 times 5 times x plus 3 times 3. Now for this one, we have to find the greatest common factor, so a factor that's in common with all three terms, with the red, the purple, and the blue. So here I can see that I have a common term, and that's our 3 right here. So I'm going to take out 1 3 out of each of those. And then what we have left is 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. And that is our factored out form. Let's try number 4. So again, we're going to see what multiplies to 10, which is 5 times 2. 20 multiplies to, I'm just going to pick 5 times 4. And then the 4 multiplies to 2 times 2. And then the 15, that multiplies to 3 times 5. So now I'm going to write out my expression in factored form. So we have 5 times 2 times A times B minus, for this one I'm only looking at the numbers at the bottom of the factor tree. So we have 2 times 5 times A times C, and then minus, and then we have 3 times 5 times A times A. So let's look and see what's in common between all of them. And it looks like we have a 5 in common between all of them. So I'm going to write the 5 out front. We have an A in common in each of them. So we have a 5A, and then that's it. So our first term, what we have left is 2B, minus our second term, we need to multiply together 2 times 2 times that C, which is 4C, minus 3 times A, so 3A.